Warframe. You know it, you love it, you hate it. You do whatever you feel like doing in it. Maybe building a pure Mesmer Skin Revenant, or optimizing Gar's Shattering Lash to do ridiculous amounts of damage. Warframe's entertainment potential is endless. But with this comes the unsung hero of Warframe, the play space required to see those dreams come to fruition. Yet most go unplayed, or generally hated by the players for one reason or another. But why? Why is that? Why do players insist on participating in a handful or even one specific mission type entirely? Hello everybody, it's me Sci-Fi, and I have returned for one final prelude before the first chapter of the modding guide release, to talk about why. Frankly, Warframe's mission design is rather unsavory, and, in my opinion, it peaked with Void Flood, Cascade, and Armageddon from the Angels of the Zariman update from 2022, which I understand is pretty bold to proclaim. But if you join me on a journey, I hopefully can help you see what it is I see. But first, context. Warframe, as you all know, is a node-based game, with each node being its own mission type. These missions range from the classic Exterminate to the more out there Mirror Defense missions, of which new nodes are added with every major update. These new nodes include new and or reused enemies from previous updates, new types of level layouts for the player to explore, and, obviously, new upgrades and loot to obtain from these new and exciting places. This being a cycle DE have been repeating since the creation of Warframe itself, with some successes and obvious failures here and there, with Warframe having over a dozen different missions in the game, not including variations of said missions. Which I will bet you can only remember at most 5 missions on the top of your head. Survival obviously being one of those, maybe Spy as well. This varies from player to player, but I'm going to bet most of you didn't choose modes like Defection, or any boss fights outside of the Fractured one, and the Ephron tank bosses, and the Sergeant for comedic reasons. And I will go as far as to say that most of you can't even remember specific tile sets or rooms, especially those that are off the beaten path, which makes it even sadder when you play through these levels and realize that the majority of these levels, in heavy air quotes, are straight paths to and from your starting point to your objective and exit. It's just a hallway simulator that puts a tag on your objective, when 9 times out of 10, you could walk to and from your objective yourself, through the simple act of deduction on your part.
These foes deserve your respect. Honor them with quick deaths, and I with your victory.
You found a target. Capture them quickly before they escape. Success. The captive is safely in our hands. Congratulations, Tenno.
As you conquer the foe, so you conquer yourself.
For a game about freedom of build expression and playing the game your way, they really don't let you choose how to proceed with your missions, do they? Anyway, why does this matter to the player? Why is it so bad that most of these levels are long, boring corridors with crates and loot that loses its value as fast as it takes for the average person to take a piss? Missions in Warframe are being generated with one objective, and only one objective in mind, which in of itself isn't a bad thing. But the problem begins when there is too much dead space, if you will, between you and your goal. To explain, let us move over a game. Bloodborne. So Bloodborne has been around for 10 years, so I'm not going to go in depth with its lore or anything related to its story here, but I will talk about the piece of content relevant to this discussion. Chalice Dungeons are Bloodborne's endgame content, if you will. The hunter, after defeating 3 bosses in the base game, can claim 3 chalices, the Thumaru, Loran, and its chalices, starting at depth or difficulty 1, 4, and 5, each requiring what is called ritual blood to unlock, a material mostly found within said dungeons, usually in the dungeon before the one that requires it, meaning you have to explore every nook and cranny of the dungeon to continue with this piece of content, which is further incentivized through how the dungeons themselves work. Each dungeon has an average 3 levels or layers, with some having 4. You will always spawn on layer 1, and you have a single goal in mind. Enter the area, search it for the lever to unlock the door to that layer's boss, kill the boss, and progress to the next layer, which rewards you with multiple upgrades known as blood gems, and in the story dungeons, something known as a root chalice, aka the randomized variant of that dungeon, can be found. When you look at the chalice dungeons at face value, the closest thing they resemble is an assassination mission. Both have you spawn at the beginning of a mission or dungeon, go from one end of the dungeon to the other in order to kill their boss, in order to gain a progression reward for your troubles. But since the devil is in the details, Bloodborne unironically does this concept significantly better than Warframe currently does. Bloodborne from the get-go has you find the switch required to progress, giving a reason to the expansive space. Warframe puts no roadblocks in front of you in terms of your objective, outside of the occasional buddy door. Now yes, a buddy door does hinder you a bit, but if it's on your path, why even have it there in the first place if its only purpose in game or in lore is to kill your momentum? Which is different from Bloodborne, where yes, its purpose is to stop you, but it creates a new challenge out of the level itself to engage the player. And this becomes more apparent when you look at how the Chalice dungeons are designed. You have one spawn point, one gate, and one lever per level, with a multitude of corridors and paths to reach said lever, or paths that in rare cases bypass the gate completely, negating the need for the lever in its entirety. Bloodborne doesn't hold your hand, and gives you the freedom to progress however you want, with many ways to loop back to your objective while searching for rare loot and other materials. By comparison, Warframe in every single mission has one single defined path, with 1 or 2 side rooms, with a rare side area, with just about zero reason to check these rooms out. Since the majority of loot, even from what is considered a rare container, can either be earned from the enemies or crafted by the player directly. Bloodborne builds incentives to continue through labyrinths around every corner. Warframe's only incentives come from the end of its missions, after bum rushing through beautiful but empty rooms. That is, until you get to the Angels of the Zariman update. The Zariman was, in my opinion, the first update where every new mission introduced not only fixed the biggest problems with Warframe's missions, but created pieces of content with actual identities to them. Take Void Armageddon. Basically Bloons tower defense at home, where players have to defend 2 exo dampers, one at a time, before a mini-boss, the Void Angel, appears to stack on the main objective. During this time, the player is incentivized to search the level for tokens needed to level up the faction, for materials that cannot be acquired by killing the enemies. Then utilize the purple Kool-Aid to build defensive turrets, each with unique effects, which can drop from enemies as well, and not in this mission, but every other mission, an optional Void Angel boss can be found and killed for the rarest token for the faction, Void Pinions. This on top of the rewards for each successful wave. And it's not like you could just not defend said objectives either. You have to engage, or you're negatively impacted via buffs enemies gain. Most of these aspects carrying over to the beautiful, if polarizing, Void Flood mission, where your objective, should you choose to accept it, is to gather Void Cum and bring it to the Void Ruptures to progress the mission. Upon completing 3 of these ruptures, you must slay Thrax units to complete the mission, or stay for more rounds to gain more rewards. But you are de-incentivized to take your time, for after a certain Void Corruption is reached, debuffs will be active within the mission. And if enough corruption is reached, the mission will fail if you do not bring the Void Cum to the ruptures within a 2-minute 30-second duration. It's a game mode that heavily incentivizes physical speed, and if possible, team play to seal the ruptures as quickly as possible, and a very high amount of single target damage, since the only unit to worry about is a single Thrax at the end of the waves, only increasing after multiple waves and if more than one player is in a squad. With the pinnacle of all these missions being the one and only Void Cascade. Now I do want to preface this section with one indisputable fact. I really do not like Void Cascade. However, I cannot deny that it is arguably the best game mode DE has ever introduced. Quick refresher for those unfamiliar. Void Cascade, similar to Armageddon and Flood, is an endurance game mode where the player is tasked with freeing Excalizers from Void control. Almost like a big game of Capture the Flag, starting at 1 and going up to 4 flags in solo, with an additional flag per player in a squad. Upon using your operator to free control, you must maintain your hold of these flags until the Excalizer depletes, with kills in the zone accelerating the decay rate. It's a game mode that mandates you to have the firepower to eradicate the Thrax units, while having the defenses to keep the Thrax from reclaiming them. And after 4 Excalizers specifically, you gain 1 reward, anywhere from currency to weapon parts, with a high probability of gaining arcanes from slain Thrax units as well. With my final dart on this extremely erratic board, being the fact you are heavily incentivized to play in a squad in these modes, due to the amount of tasks required of the player, mainly attacking and defending an objective, makes these missions at minimum a 2-person job. They force you to engage in online co-op and work together as a team to complete the task, taking on a specific role and task, with the player being mindful of their arsenal and how to use their various tools. And the saddest part about all of this, we are never going to get missions this innovative and interesting, possibly ever. Over the past several major updates, such as Whispers in the Walls, Jade Shadows in 1999, this including the Echoes updates as well, we have gotten at most one genuinely new game mode in each of these updates. Not reskins like the Hell Scrubbers missions being basically survival with extra steps. I mean something that is 100% new, like Alchemy, Ascension, and Legacyte Harvest, with every other mode being ones we have already seen like Exterminate. I mean heck, in 1999 we got 2 Exterminates for crying out loud. Now yes, these new modes we are getting have been very interesting and do try to push the game forward, through the use of wider and more vertical tile sets to further increase the illusion of openness and freedom, or introduce more variants in enemy types, with special enemies spawning on these tiles from a call-in system like the Void Rigs on the Murmur tile sets, to help build risk and engagement. But it's slow, and ultimately doesn't do enough to satisfy its players, or at least older players like me. Maybe the lack of actual fail states, like in Alchemy, or the risk and or struggle that is out of the player's control in Legacyte Harvest with its damage attenuation system. Given these issues with these modes, what theoretically can be done to help alleviate these problems? The first, and arguably the easiest fix to this, would be to change how the levels are generated themselves. As previously stated, Warframe's levels mainly consist of one path or sequence of rooms, with a hall or room that branches off to dead ends. So, what if we were to change it so it starts as one path, then branches off into their own sequence of corridors, paths that can connect or intersect over time, with the possibility of adding 2 or even 3 exits to any given level. This alone would breathe so much life into even the most boring of missions, by giving more player agency on where they wish to go, and how they wish to progress at any given time. The additional exit points in particular would make it easier to leave endless missions, since oftentimes you have to go 600 meters plus to exit missions, since you find yourself on the opposite side of the level. A second one would take a page out of Bloodborne's book, and make it so we as players can use various resources from said content to apply challenges and modifiers to a mission that can reward, say, unique mods, extra arcanes or steel essence, maybe even credits or just something in general. That way players can have an optional challenge to overcome for unique rewards, and it gives a purpose to the millions of nanospores that you may have in your inventory. Lastly, DE should take what they have introduced and innovate on, and give older tile sets a bit of a makeover. Introduce more vertical tile sets and zones to give greater exploration and player agency between rooms. And try introducing more optional bosses that roam certain missions to give players a cool thing to do. Now, despite what I've just said, it is very unlikely DE would do much of anything like this. Not because they dislike their older content, but because they very openly want to prioritize newer content, which is fair. But if they somehow see this, I think these ideas could help out if you return to said content, and I know they could do it well. If Zariman is evidence of what this current DE team is capable of creating. And with that, I take my leave. Thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw, feel free to give a like, sub, and comment letting me know your thoughts. If you want to talk with other people about Warframe, or want to talk with me directly for anything involving the game, consider joining my Discord. And if you want to get some looks behind the scenes at videos and script access, consider checking out my Patreon. And now, I will see you all later. Have a wonderful day.